Well, we're on page 94 of Sri Sharda Devi and her divine play, and studying the divine incarnation of God as mother, or a female Jesus, as you may like it. Who knows? And we're reading her daily routine. It says every day, Holy Mother got up at 3 o'clock in the morning. All right. Usually we can get through one sentence before it's quite challenging. But here you see, so daily, she gets up at 3 a.m. every day before other people awoke. After bathing in the Ganges, she spent about an hour and a half in worship and meditation, after which she started cooking for the master and his devotees. If the disciples were not in Dakshineshwar to perform the task, she would rub the master's body with oil before his bath. Afterwards, she would prepare betel rolls for the master and his devotees. Well, look at all that service. I mean, the day hasn't even broken yet, and she's making food and betel rolls and cooking for the master and giving him a body massage and oil treatment after her own bath and her own practice. This is really this is a great example here. There's just no downtime, and the whole time you could just see all of the teachings of Vivekananda kind of, you can see the source of them for karma yoga and for staying busy and keeping the mind active and being engaged. That being enlightened does not at all, or doesn't necessarily mean that we turn inert, or that we become so disinterested in everything that we don't act. Quite the opposite. We see the heart of everything, and we're inspired to act deeply and to obey our nature. Obey is a totally wrong word, but our nature becomes our own nature becomes inspiring to us. Let's put it that way. When you're enlightened, your own nature becomes inspiring to you and inspires you to good deeds, to deep love, and to wisdom. Generally, the master took his lunch before noon, so when he returned from his bath, Holy Mother carried his food tray to his room and personally watched over his meal. She often diverted his mind with light talk so that he would not fall into samadhi while eating. That's a marvelous service there. I don't know of anybody else that's taken on that job for somebody. The anti-samadhi uh, service person. So she keeps him out, diverts his mind with light talk to keep him from falling into samadhi while eating, which frequently happened without warning. At 1 o'clock, when a nearby factory blew its whistle, Holy Mother took her lunch. After a short rest, she would sit on the steps of the Nahabat and dry her hair. The master was concerned about Holy Mother's health. He told her, if a wild bird is kept within a cage day and night, it gets rheumatic. While the temple officials were resting in the early afternoon, the master often sent Holy Mother to visit some neighbors who lived near the north gate. She returned to the Nahabat during evening vespers when no one was around. Then she would light a lamp, burn incense, and sit for meditation. Afterward, she began cooking the evening meal. After feeding the master and his mother, Holy Mother took her own supper and then retired to bed at 11 o'clock. M. described how Holy Mother lived in the Nahabat. Sri Ramakrishna's mother used to live in the upper room of the northern Nahabat, and Holy Mother lived in the lower room. Holy Mother lived there like a caged bird. She cooked for the master in a tiny kitchen under the stairs of the Nahabat. M pointed to the steps leading to the upper floor of the Nahabat. Holy Mother would sit here and would repeat her mantra as she cooked. As a result of her limited movement, she developed rheumatism that caused suffering all through her life. Her little room was filled with groceries and other things, and sometimes women devotees also stayed there. What a superhuman patience, perseverance, and self control. Her self sacrifice and service were incomparable, just incomparable. You know, and actually just reading what we've read so far, if you were just to take that whole section, there's a whole lesson in what karma yoga looks like, you know, in what a natural spiritual life looks like. You see all the meditation that she did, and then moved seamlessly from that meditation into direct service to Thakur and to the devotees, you know, and then direct service into cooking for everybody, which she repeated her mantra continually while she was cooking for everyone, you know. And so just this you see how she has her mind constantly arranged so that it's on the divine, at the feet of God. And this is why, you know, she says of this period of time later on that she had a jug of bliss, a huge jug of bliss that was always present within her. And that's the result of great practice. You know, if you've got a great practice going, there's a lightness to you, a joy to your life. There's always a good laugh in times of trouble available to you, as you draw near to the divine, because nothing can be serious in this world. You are immortal. You can't be touched. You know, there's a chasm between you and the material world, so that it cannot affect your nature. It cannot affect actually who you are. That's all kept in the mind, you know, safe and away from you. You are that eternal being that encapsulates all of that. All of this is within you, but it is not you. And so it cannot have an effect on you. It has an effect on the ego self, right? And so that's the importance of our realization, to move our presence out of the ego and into this eternal self, this Satchitananda, this absolute unchanging within. One should not think that Holy Mother only suffered. She also experienced spiritual ecstasy in the company of Ramakrishna. She later reminisced, what a unique man he was. How many minds he illuminated. What unceasing bliss he radiated. Day and night his room echoed and re-echoed with laughter, stories, talking, singing, and music. The master sang, and I listened hour after hour, standing behind the screen of the Nahabat. What joyous days we passed through. People poured in day and night, and there was no end to spiritual talk. Just a permanent retreat right there, with two people just doing what they loved most, what they were absorbed in most. You know, just this constant natural giving of these spiritual insights and this illumination that the master would be able to give to people, freeing them from their troubles, and you know, Holy Mother's time just sitting there in bliss, not able to pull herself away, you know, from these words. Can you imagine? I mean, the teachings of Swami of Ramakrishna, just nonstop going on through the day. You would always just be parked right there. Just I wouldn't want to miss a thing, you know, anything that he had to say. I can't imagine what it would be like to not have to read these books, but to just be sitting in the presence and watching it happen, to see it all unfold. Yes.
Do you have time for that? She sounds kind of busy. But did it say that she was just sitting there and listening?
Yeah, she would stand behind that screen for hours at a time, it said there. So she would stand behind the screen just for her own sense of modesty. But she would stand there. She had torn a little hole in it so she could peek through, and the master used to sometimes tease her about that. But yeah, no, she definitely made time, and everything that she spent time on, she soaked it in God. You know, so she was never doing something secular, even if the work looked secular. She was always in a state of service, always in a state of caring and giving. And we just see that in her life everywhere. And the people around her, speak of her like that. Such an unassuming, gentle soul, no ego, just no ego in her. A beautiful life. In spiritual life, service to others is vital because it effaces the ego, right? Serving another effaces the ego. Having a guru, serving the guru, seeing God in the guru, all of those undo the strength of the ego, undo the wily tangle of thinking around ego. So serving someone way past your limit of comfort is a great way to break ego down, a great way to do it. Just to throw yourself in. There's a few devotees that I know that are really good at this. And it's a beautiful, beautiful trait to have. In spiritual life, service to others is vital because it effaces the ego. There is a Hindi saying, Seva Bandi or Adinata Aise Mili Raghurai. Anyway, Greg can fix that later for me. Service, worship, and humility are three important disciplines for God realization. So service, worship, and humility. All of those are very gentle ways of reducing ego. They're painful ways of reducing it. But this idea of all three of those are like taking a sponge to your ego, kind of slowly wearing it down, washing it off, washing it away. So that service, and just always being the butler of the world, that you stand like peace pilgrim, always ready to serve. Every moment is an opportunity for service. Worship is what happens. Worship is not something, of course it is something that you do or can be talked about in that way, but real worship is what happens. It happens. It's not something you do. It's what happens when you're in the presence of the divine. When you're in the presence of God, that is worship, because the self just goes into that state. It worships naturally. It's looking only at the divine, and all of your focus and inspiration go that way. The love that wells up within, all of that is worship, and very, very, very beneficial for undoing an ego, for helping you see around the edges of that ego. So worship and humility. Humility is something that should happen. It's hard to practice humility in a convincing way. So I think through discernment, humility increases. When you start becoming more and more honest about where you're really at and what your life really looks like, then your chances are you'll be more humble. Because pride always comes from just boxing things in again. It's like putting boundaries around good things that you do and only thinking about those things and forgetting about the other stories that attach to them. And that's how pride, arrogance comes about. You get a very wrong idea of who you are. So these three are the important disciplines for God realization. Krishna says so in the Gita, chapter 4, verse 34. Learn it by prostration, by inquiry, and by service. The wise who have seen the truth will teach you that knowledge. Ramakrishna taught his disciples practical Vedanta, that is, to serve human beings as God. According to Vedanta philosophy, Brahman, or God, dwells in all beings. Service to others is the easiest and the quickest way to conquer the hearts of others. One can tame even ferocious wild animals with loving care. In Ramakrishna's household in Dakshineshwar, Holy Mother took the position of the mother of the house. Disregarding her own health and comfort, she served the Master, his disciples, and his devotees day and night. She demonstrated the ideal of service throughout her life. She had that particular practice of seeing us all as her children, and serving us as her children, loving us as her children, and not in a metaphorical way. She, in a couple of places, demonstrates and shows other disciples that she is, in fact, your real mother, that she can demonstrate that to you by taking on the form of your own mother. And so this really speaks to that intimacy of that relationship. And it's interesting because it's, that's why, parents should be very careful about being great parents, because many of your children's ideas about God come from you. God the Father and God the Mother, the first association for both of those when a child hears it is going to be you and your activities. And so don't stress out about that. Just just think of God always and it'll work out. So Holy Mother making everyone her child and serving everyone, just really always watching out for people. And you can see that in her life. You can see the way her concern for the cats, her concern for the broom, her concern for the women that lived on her street and the way that their husbands treated them, that she had a real heart and was really aware of what was going on in people's lives in case there was an opportunity for her to help. And as children of the Mother, this is our inspiration. This is our calling, to be able to love like Mother loves, to be able to have a mother heart, regardless of what we look like. She demonstrated the ideal of service throughout her life. Yogin Ma reminisced about how Holy Mother cared for the devotees. One day, Holy Mother was preparing betel rolls in the Nahabat, and I was watching her. She prepared some rolls with cardamom and other spices, and other rolls with only lime and betel nut. I asked her, "Mother, will you not add cardamom and spices to all of them? For whom are the good spicy ones, and for whom are the ordinary ones?" She replied, "Yogin, the good ones are for the devotees. I have to make them my own by taking special care of them. These ordinary ones are for the master. He is already my own." That's interesting. So she wasn't giving the best ones to the master. She was giving to the best ones to the devotees. That reminds me of Prabhupada. Greg, I don't know if Greg remembers telling me that or not, but when I first moved into the monastery in San Francisco, and after I'd been in a month or two, I guess, Greg was he was teaching me how to be a good brahmachari and also teaching me all of the unwritten ways of working around being a good brahmachari. So I got a good lesson on that if I ever needed something, if I ever needed something to buy something, he says, if you tell Swami it's for the monastery, you'll always get a no. You have to figure out how what you need serves the devotees. Because if you package it as something that serves the devotees, Swami Prabhupada will give you immediate approval on it. And so these little things. So the devotees are the stars in the eyes of the sadhus. That you see that Holy Mother is what she said it right here. That one of the reasons that she was so interested in serving was that she understood that it was her duty to make you her own, and to have you know in your deepest self that she is your own. That's her duty, and that is much of the driving, well, not driving force, I don't like that, but that's much of the inspiration for her service to you, is to convince you. We were talking, actually somebody asked that question just before class about, how do we get faith in the Guru? And it's through the heart of the Guru, through seeing and that love and that compassion and that service toward us. That is what increases our faith. And that's why faith is increased through discernment also, because that's how we begin to see the grace of the divine. As we see the growth beginning to happen, and we see the break between self and mind beginning to form, and we feel that separateness from the world, in the sense of the material changing. All of that is grace, and all of that comes and inspires toward service, toward giving. That's how we reach that place. Cooking consumed a great deal of Holy Mother's time and energy. Now and then she received help from a maidservant. During the early days in Dakshineshwar, she cooked for only a few people, the master, his mother, and occasionally some relatives and guests. But from 1880 onward, the number of the master's devotees increased. On the occasion of the master's birthday, she cooked for as many as 50 or 60 people. Gosh, in that little tiny room. That's amazing. She probably had a bunch of the ladies helping, and how they all managed to do something in that space. Incredible. Incredible. It was not possible for her God-intoxicated husband to buy groceries, nor could Holy Mother perform this task because she was too shy to appear in public. Also, she did not know how to count money. Senior Gopal, who was older even than Ramakrishna, bought the groceries. Sometimes Holy Mother sent the maidservant to get something from the local market. The temple manager probably provided staples like rice, dal, and oil from the temple store. The master was not indifferent to Holy Mother. He noticed that she was overworked. One day he saw Latu meditating in the Panchavati. On his way to the pine grove, where he went to answer the call of nature, he said to him, "O Nito, the one on whom you are meditating is here now, cooking and cleaning the dishes in the Nahabat. Do you know that?" Then he took Latu to Holy Mother and said, "This boy will help you with the housework." From then on, Latu washed dishes, prepared spices, kneaded dough, and did other chores. Ramakrishna's stomach was very delicate, so he depended on Holy Mother to prepare special meals for him. In July 1884, when Holy Mother went to Karmarpur to attend Ramlal's wedding, the master jokingly told Balaram Bose one of the purposes of his marriage. Here we go. This will be interesting. The master, pointing to Balaram, "Well, can you tell me why I married? What is the purpose of having a wife? I cannot even take care of the cloth on my own body. It just drops off. Why then do I have a wife?" Balaram smiled and kept quiet. The master, "Oh, I understand," taking a little curry from the plate and showing it to Balaram. "For this reason I married. Otherwise, who else would cook for me with such care?" Balaram and the other devotees laughed. "Truly speaking, who else would look after my food? They all left today," seeing that the devotees did not understand who had left, "along with Ramlal's aunt. Ramlal is going to be married, so everyone left for Karmarpur today. I watched her departure impassively. It was truly as if someone else had left. Then I grew anxious, and I thought about who would cook for me. You see, some kinds of food do not agree with my stomach, nor am I always conscious enough to eat. She, the Holy Mother, knows what kind of food suits me and makes various preparations accordingly. So I asked myself, who is going to cook for me?" So he had a real dependence on her, and her care of him, was perfect. So that it was, when you think of him as an avatar, feeling some anxiety when the person who takes such sweet care of him goes away. How, for a man of such renunciation, to be worried when someone leaves him or goes away from him, boy, what a testimony that is to what the Divine Mother was to him. The attention that she put on serving him and supporting him in his spiritual work. It's a fantastic relationship, a really deep one that I imagine if anybody were to study that relationship between Thakur and Ma, there's probably miles of gold mines to pull nuggets of wisdom for how to deal with our own relationships and with people, and how to serve without getting caught, without getting an ego, or without running into our limits with how much we're willing to do. You just look at Mother, and she didn't have any limits. She got rheumatoid, whatever that was. She went rheumatoid in her legs from sitting in the Nahabat, and from standing and watching the Master, and just that discipline all around her life. Beautiful, just beautiful things here. Orthodox Hindus consider a woman to be unclean for 3 days during her monthly period. At that time, she cannot cook or perform other household duties. When the Holy Mother could not cook for the Master, he got his meals from the kitchen of the Kali temple. But that oily and spicy food did not agree with him. One day, when his stomach was upset, he sent for Holy Mother and asked her why she had not prepared his meal. When she explained, the Master said, "Who told you that a woman cannot cook for those 3 days? You must cook for me as usual. There is nothing wrong with that. Please tell me, what is impure in a person? The skin, the flesh, the bones, the marrow? It is the mind that makes one pure or impure. There is no impurity outside the mind." From then on, the Holy Mother always cooked for the Master, and he did not suffer an upset stomach. Well, there you go. There's a nice reform, and it's true. I mean, even in Christianity, you run into some of that in what makes a person impure. Jesus says the same. It's not what goes into a man that makes him impure, but what comes out of a man, his words and his deeds, that make him pure or impure. And so it's kind of funny, because it seems like in the older religions, in the beginnings, like in Judaism and here in Orthodox Hinduism, that the woman was unclean during her period, and that's disturbing. Why would we talk that way? Why about something absolutely normal and natural? And so it's quite, at least to me, I'm very happy to see the Masters say, "What is that? What is that? That's not the thing." I like to think that those the fact that, well, he kind of overdoes that too, but I've always kind of made room for that impurity of the period part of a woman's life. I always kind of thought of like, well, that may be of how it got packaged over time. But I think it was really just to give a woman some space to deal with things during that time that is just a little bit more difficult or a little bit less clear, and just giving her the space to do whatever she needs to do, to live, to live happily. I know nothing about these things, but that's how it always kind of played out in my mind. That these rules of the impurity, that you couldn't go to the temple, you couldn't cook for things, you couldn't give things to people. In the end, they called it impure, because I'm sure that served the patriarchy rather well. But in the end, really what it was giving, it was God's intention to give space and time for us all to take care of ourselves the way we need to take care of ourselves.
Swami, there's a famous book called The Red Tent.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of, there's this tent where the women go to when they're having their menstrual cycle or when they're giving birth, and it's kind of like a sacred space for them. So
I would hope so. Yeah.
It fits your theory.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I would. Yeah. Yes, for sure. The Master was not a big eater. He became nervous if he saw a large quantity of rice on his plate. He refused to eat it for fear of upsetting his stomach, but Holy Mother tricked him by compressing the rice into a small mound. She also boiled down his milk to make the quantity seem smaller. She cooked bitter squash curry, prepared soup with gondal leaf, and made dishes with raw figs, green plantains, eggplant, and other vegetables that the Master liked. Because the Master had no body consciousness, She watched how he ate and rested, and she protected him from disturbance. So I love some of the sass that Holy Mother had toward Ramakrishna. You know, the way she took care of him. She watched out for everything in him, and whenever he would challenge her, she put her foot down. This is my domain. This is my domain. You don't put your mind over here. You know, he once tried to scold her for the number of chapatis that she was giving to some of the young men. He thought she was overfeeding him, and she just didn't even hear it. She wouldn't take any of it. She was like, look, that is my ministry. They are my children. They are my business. You take care of their spiritual lives. You take care of their teachings, but this is mine. And she had no bones about that. You know, she was very strong in that way. So don't get the wrong idea about the nature of her service. She wasn't a groveling, person who's just doing it traditionally to be a good person. There's a very, 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 very important and deep spiritual ideal that is working out in front of us in the life of Holy Mother. A powerful current of such a pure love for people that she's actually able to see them, to experience them as her children, not just overlaying the idea of you be my child. That within the Holy Mother, just like we saw body changing powers in Ramakrishna, in the same way, the mother had this power to where we became her children. We weren't seen as her children. We became her children, and she gave herself to us as our own mother. You know, that is what it means to have God as mother. And that's what one of the values of God incarnating as the feminine, to just lay out this depth of love that God has for us. And and that through woman he chose to make it most manifest and most apparent to us. It's amazing and beautiful. Vivekananda thought that was one of the primary things that India had to give the West, was this idea of God as mother. You know, he said that God had been the father for too long in the West and had become a tyrant, and that now the West needed to understand God as mother, as the divine. And really the well-balanced is to know that God is father and mother, that's why he incarnated this time in three. You know, he gave us a bigger picture of herself than previously, when, you know, this time he incarnated as Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and Holy Mother. And the three of them together give us our picture of the divine, of God. That each one of them is whole in themselves, but as far as a manifestation of God, just a small part, you know, a small hole through which God is seen. And so, beautiful life. A mad woman sometimes came to Dakshineshwar and disturbed the master. One day she acted immodestly, and the master scolded her sharply. When the Holy Mother heard about it, she said to Golap Ma, "See what he has done. If the girl acted foolishly, then why didn't he send her to me? Why did he scold her?" Then she sent for the woman and said to her, "My child, if he is annoyed by your presence, don't go to him. Why don't you come to me?" The Holy Mother took care of her with love and with compassion, thus protecting the master. Holy Mother later recalled how she handled the temple maidservant who cleaned Ramakrishna's room. Brinda was by no means an easy woman. A fixed number of luchis, fried bread, were set aside for her refreshment. She would be extremely abusive if that was found wanting. She would say, "Look at these sons of gentlemen. They have eaten my share also. I do not get even a few sweets." The master was afraid lest these words should reach the ears of the young devotees. And one day, early in the morning, he came to the Nahabat and said, "Well, I have given Brindi's luchis to others. Please prepare some for her." Otherwise, she'll become abusive. One must avoid wicked persons. As soon as Brindy came, I said to her, "Well, Brindy, there is no refreshment for you today. I'm just preparing Luchi's." She said, "That's all right. Please do not take the trouble. You may give me raw foodstuffs." I gave her flour, butter, potatoes, and other vegetables. So you see again the mother heart there. We've got Takor scolding, doing the father's part, holding that line. And then mother coming in behind, which is nice. It wasn't that someone else came, or she was, again, that butler sitting and watching and waiting. And she becomes aware of this woman having been scolded. And she was concerned, about her, and said, come to me, come to me. And she got a personal invitation to God through the Divine Mother. And that's a beautiful thing. You see how she feels toward you, that even when you get your corrections from your teachers, from your gurus, from other holy company, you can always go to Mother. When the ego is wounded, when the heart is wounded, when any difficulties, you can always know that Mother, even if you're at fault, even if you've done something awful. We have examples of young monks running to Holy Mother for forgiveness for things that they did, outright things that they were being kicked out of the monastery for. And Mother always met them with compassion. Mother always met them with a rebuilding, a beautiful upliftment. And she would always encourage them, forgive them, and send them back with a note saying, "Mother says to accept me, back into the monastery." And, I know Swami Brahmananda one time joked, "Oh, you've gone, was it you've gone to the magistrate, or you've gone to the Supreme Court?" So they viewed Mother as being like that. That voice, her voice was law for the monks in the order in the first few years, and even now, actually. Once, when the master was ill, an Ayurvedic doctor from Calcutta named Ganga Prasad Sen treated him. The doctor prescribed some medicines that would become ineffective if the patient drank water, so he forbade the master to drink even a drop. The childlike master began to ask everyone, "Well, shall I be able to live without water?" Holy Mother assured him, "Of course, you'll be all right without drinking any water." The master replied, "Look, you will have to remove water even from the washed pomegranate seeds." Holy Mother said, "Everything will happen by the grace of Mother Kali. I will do my best." He took the medicine and resolved not to drink any water. Holy Mother recalled, "Every day I gave him 3 or 4 seers. 1 seer is 4 cups. Every day I gave him 3 or 4 seers of milk to drink. Later on, even 5 to 6 seers. The man who milked the temple cows used to give me milk in large quantities. He would say to me, 'If I give all this milk to the temple, the priests will take it home after worship and give it away to anyone and everyone. But if I leave the milk here, the master will have it.' He used to give up to 5 or 6 seers of milk a day. He was a good man, full of devotion. I used to give him sweets. I would boil the milk down to a seer and a half. The master would ask me, 'Well, how much milk is there here?' I would say, 'Oh, a seer or a seer and a quarter.' And he would remark, 'Well, perhaps more. I see such a thick scum in it.' One day Golub was there, and he asked her, 'How much milk is there?' And she told the truth. 'Ah, so much milk,' he exclaimed. 'That's why I get indigestion. Call her, call her.' I came in, and he told me what Golub had said about the milk, and I pacified him, saying, 'Oh, Golub does not know the measurements. How can she know how much this pot contains?'" So this game going on, Mother's just looking out for his well-being. And he, like a child, wanting to find out what's going on in there. Another day he asked Golub about the milk, and she said in reply, "Oh, one full bowl from here and another from the Kali temple." At this, the master got nervous again. He sent for me and began to ask about the exact measurement of the bowl as to how many poas and chataks it contained. I replied, "I do not know about poas and chataks. You will drink the milk. Why all these inquiries about measurements? Who knows about these calculations?" He was not satisfied. He said, "Can I digest all of this milk? I shall get indigestion." Really, that day he did get indigestion. He did not take anything that night except for a little sago water. Golub said to me afterward, "Well, mother, you should have told me about it before. How could I know?" His whole evening meal is spoiled. In reply, I said to her, "There is no harm in telling him a lie about food." Thus I coax him to eat. In this way, his health got better and he was almost cured of his illness. You know, I don't know what to say about that. It's okay to lie about the quantity. If it's for a person's good, it looks like mother's giving you some fudge room there, a little wiggle room for your elbows. So if you have to trick someone in order to do good for them, that's all right, according to mother. So it's very funny just to see how they played with each other. Many years later, when Mrs. Sarah Bull, an American devotee, asked Holy Mother about her attitude toward Ramakrishna, she replied, "In spiritual matters, absolute obedience. In other things, I use my own common sense." And that's a good way. That's a good way to navigate the Vedanta Center. I'll let you read it and meditate on it, decide how that works for you. But always know the given line is not the only line. Mother gives you some wiggle room in here to kind of make yourself at home and to get yourself comfortable. And you take what you need. Mother gives you what you need happily. And when it's time to move beyond, well, we'll move beyond. But until then, take refuge in Mother. What a divine privilege. So that is so for your spiritual teachers and spiritual matters, obey them to the letter, absolutely. But in any other kind of matter, use your common sense. Hear what they say, but mix your own common sense in there with it as well. That's the teaching of the mother. In the early days, when the Holy Mother lived in Dakshineshwar, a maid would stay with her in the Nahabat at night. One night, there was a torrential rain, and the maid could not come, so the master asked Holy Mother to sleep in his room, so that she would not have to be alone. When she arrived, the master asked, "Where is your jewelry? Bring it here." Holy Mother replied, "I can't go back now. It will be all right." This little incident shows how the love and concern that Ramakrishna had for his wife, although most of the time he was in an ecstatic mood. In the early days, Holy Mother did not have many companions except for some fisherwoman and a maid who stayed with her for a short time. Occasionally, she had some women visitors from Calcutta. An elderly woman who had led an immoral life in her youth often visited the Holy Mother. Noticing her a few times, the master asked Holy Mother, "Why do you allow her in the Nahabat?" He told her of the woman's past. She replied, "That may be, but now she talks only about God and spiritual matters." But the master insisted, "Whatever she may say now, she was once a prostitute. Why should you speak to her? Goodness gracious." Thus he forbade her from even speaking with that woman, lest she should have an adverse influence on her. Holy Mother's open-mindedness and compassion emerged with the awakening of her motherhood. She felt that she was a mother to everyone who came to Ramakrishna, and she acted accordingly. In this aspect of her life, she would not bear outside interference. She could not turn away anyone who addressed her as mother. One day she was carrying the master's food to his room. A woman begged her, "Mother, please allow me to carry the tray to the master." Holy Mother agreed. That woman took the food to the master's room, placed it before him, and left. Holy Mother sat down to watch him eat, but he could not touch the food. He said to her, "What have you done? Why did you allow her to touch the tray? Don't you know she leads an immoral life? How can I eat food that she has touched?" Holy Mother said, "I know all about it. Please eat." you know so mother is our refuge. Mother really understands the struggles of this life, and she has given herself completely to you, that if you call her mother, she simply cannot resist you. And so, when you pray, just call out, "Mother, mother, I really, am having a tough time," or whatever, but call her mother. It's the same as the Christians calling in Jesus' name. You can call in Mother's name and get that get that same inside scoop there. I know all about it. Eat. The master still could not touch the food. At her repeated requests, he said, "Please promise not to allow that woman to carry my food again." Holy Mother humbly replied, "Master, I cannot make such a promise, but I shall try to bring your food myself. If someone addresses me as mother and asks to carry the tray, I cannot refuse. You must not forget that you are not only my Lord, you are the Lord of all." The master was pleased with this response, and he ate his meal. So, see, here we have Mother as guru, Mother teaching the guru. And we see the Thakur hearing it. Why? Because the heart of Mother behind it. He can't argue with that. If someone calls me mother, I can do nothing. I can't deny them their request. And so he accepts that and eats this woman's food. And so, it's no mystery to me that I found this life through the Divine Mother. That she brings us in and then presents us to Thakur. Golap Ma was a simple and guileless woman who had lost her husband and only daughter, and she came to Ramakrishna for consolation. After a few visits, the master introduced Golap Ma to Holy Mother, saying, "You should feed this Brahmin girl well. Sorrow is assuaged when the stomach is full." The master knew that when he was gone, Holy Mother would need a companion, and one day he talked to Holy Mother about Golap Ma. "Keep your eye on this Brahmin woman. She will live with you permanently." Golap Ma began to stay with the Holy Mother in the Nahabat from time to time. So you see, Master, we've seen today that he was watching and he was concerned about her health from living in the small quarters. He was concerned about her standing all that time behind the screen. And now he's concerned about, he's concerned when she had forgotten her jewelry, told her that she should go back and get it. Told her here, looking at her future and realizing that he's going to have to leave her when he passes, and making arrangements for her companionship, for having someone with her the whole time. You see, love, this is love in action. All of it done very naturally within the confines of their lives, but all of it beautiful and consistently. Lives of renouncing themselves for everyone else. I can only imagine there were times when Ramakrishna was like, "Oh, good God, I wish all these people would stay out of my room today and just give me a moment, give me a day by myself." But never. That was never the case. And the same thing with the Holy Mother. She would have loved a day off, no doubt, where she didn't have to cook for anybody, where she could have just chilled out, and she never even thought of that. Her bliss came from living a life of integrity with her nature. That was where her only joy was. And so she went forward with that, dedicated to that. All right. Let's stop there for today.